I'm glad somebody wrote her plan, but when she does interviews, she doesn't go into details or specifics. She really talks in broad generalities. She talks about her launch. She talks about everything about the specifics that's going to help restore American wealth, which her and Biden have robbed America of wealth through the last 3.5 years with inflation. So, I mean, her challenge is she has to convince America that her plan forward is better than the plan that's existed, that she's been a part of for the last 4 years. And I don't, and we can have all these economists come forward. They all came forward in 2016 and said Donald Trump would wreck the economy, it would cause a recession, and none of these things, none of those things
That's partly
happened.
because he had people around him who restrained him from doing some of the really stupid things he
So
wanted to do.
So the economists were wrong.
But when it comes to, he was not able to execute his plan of firing the Fed
Or
chair.
to pulling completely out of NAFTA
Yes.
with nothing.
He negotiated now.
I know, but
let's be clear.
Catherine's
And
point
now
is
he's
that,
mad about it.
Catherine's point,
Well, they have
Catherine's
an
point is that
opportunity to revisit it in 2 years. That's the
Catherine's
law.
point is that he campaigned on getting rid of NAFTA altogether. He renegotiated it because his aides convinced him that that was not.
And he got a better deal out of
And
it.
I think the real reason that they had to put out this 82-page plan is because she's down 15 points on the economy in the latest CNN poll, right? I mean, and the other criticism is that she needs to be more detailed in her policies. I watched this entire interview. I did not think she was that detailed. I mean, she's very much focused on the middle class, and it's a very populist message. But I do think that she needs to be a little bit more detailed on some of these issues. Nobody's going to sit down and read the 82-point plan or the 82-page plan.
Yeah.
But when she has the opportunity to do these interviews, she really has to capitalize on them. And I've been saying for a long time she needs to do more of them in the local markets in the battleground states.
Yeah, I think the reality is the undecided voter may not be watching MSNBC. So if they didn't get an opportunity to see that interview, they're certainly not going to read this long thing. So they might see clips of this on social media, or they might see clips of it presented on a show like this. And when you look at what she said in the interview, I don't think she was as detailed as people were calling for. She really struggled to answer the question of how she's going to pay for some of these things. She says raise the taxes, but guess what? She may not have a Democrat-controlled Senate, and she struggled on the tariffs questions as well. Of course, they not only kept a lot of the tariffs up from the Trump administration, but they actually expanded some of the ones with China. And I don't think she was really able to articulate when she talks about, yes, tariffs can be good, but not always. It's a very powerful tool, I think, in an arsenal for a president when you come to dealing with countries like China who have very unfair advantages. They don't pay for capital. A lot of their companies are owned by the government. They don't pay a living wage. And then on top of it, they don't have environmental control. So they're able to produce things at a much lower price than what we are. So the tariffs can be useful there. However, they're not always useful when you talk about pharmaceuticals or things that people need that we simply don't always produce
I do
here.
also think, I mean, it's not just about tariffs, right? I mean, that just happens to be the thing that Donald Trump talks about the most. Harris talked about a lot of other things. I think the trouble is
she
struggled in a lot of.
She talked about a lot of other things. She didn't give a lot of detail, but she hit on a lot of different.
But what breaks
topics.
through to the American people? I mean, this is the challenge when anybody
Taxes.
runs against Donald Trump. He says, slap 200% tariffs on them, and that's kind of what people hear. When you try to get to the heart of what the Harris economics plan is, did you get the sense of what that was?
Parts
the
of it.
speech,
I mean,
the interview. Both of them?
so to be clear, what's in the 82-page tome is not really that different from what the campaign has put out in the past few weeks. It, has more charts and footnotes and things like that, but there isn't a lot that's new in there. I will say, yes, I would love to hear her put out more details, more meat on the bone of a lot of these policy proposals, but we also shouldn't have a crazy double standard where, she has to have all of the footnotes and economic regressions, and Trump can just burp out
the question
whatever
is not about
tax
footnotes.
cut.
The question is about are the American people actually hearing what the plan is? I mean, we're basically out of time.
Yeah,
but those are different questions.
We've got 40 days to go,
Yeah.
so you need to talk in broad strokes so they understand the contrast, and that's what she's doing. And,
But we
and
did
they're
find
not
out,
understanding
we
it.
did find out
She's not
she actually
convincing
worked at
them.
McDonald's.
yeah, so
We did find that out in the interview, and I was very pleased. I
This
can
is
sleep
a
tonight
big
now.